Western Electric employees swell the growing total of striking workers throughout the country. Thousands of New York telegraph workers also walk out and picket Western Union buildings, crippling telegraphic communications. Less than 15% of messages are being handled in the New York area. Although the strike was conducted in an orderly manner, police occasionally have to use persuasion to pass an unaffected employee through the picket lines. Orders to the pickets and instructions are relayed from sound trucks. Sympathy demonstrations have disrupted a great portion of transatlantic traffic received in New York. But in Detroit, the labor picture has a brighter side. A new management labor pact is completed as Henry Kaiser affixes his signature to the agreement under which cars will be built at the former Willow Run plant. UAW leaders sign for the workers. Joseph Frazer, Kaiser's partner, voices satisfaction.
The negotiations which have just been concluded were carried on in the greatest spirit of friendliness and mutual understanding. And at Willow Run, we look forward to long years of peace and harmony in the production of our fine transportation for the peoples of the world.
This desolated home in Chicago's fashionable Edgewater district was the scene of one of the most brutal crimes in police history, the kidnapping of pretty 6-year-old Suzanne Degnan. In the early hours of the morning, the innocent girl was taken from her bedroom and spirited away by a maniacal killer who later dismembered her childish body. In a desperate appeal to the heartless fiend, Suzanne's father broadcast a reply to the demand for $20,000 ransom. But even while his anguished message was being radioed, police were combing the neighborhood for traces of the crime and its perpetrator. In this catch basin was found little Suzanne's severed head. Searchers dig through trash bins looking for other parts of the tiny body. The grim search continues while the entire city goes on a manhunt, vowing vengeance on the slayer of the ravaged child.
A throng gathers at New York's Pennsylvania station to welcome the legendary Coast Guard mascot, Sinbad. Most famous sailor aboard the cutter Campbell for the past 8 years, he has traveled more than 1 million miles, hitting port in all parts of the globe. But everybody needs a medical checkup, especially Sinbad, noted far and wide for his rum and beer drinking habits. But it's enough mates to bore you to death. Sinbad studies a map of his travels, which appears in his biography, before calling on Admiral Edward Smith. But Sinbad has little use for officers and will only drink with enlisted men like himself. Do you think on the morning after he needs the hair of the man who bit him? 1,000 members of the motion picture industry gather to honor Ted Gamble, retiring head of the War Finance Division of the Treasury Department. In New York, the man who headed 8 bond drives is presented with a silver cigar box by George Schaefer. $150 billion worth of bonds is his sales record. In reply, Mr. Gamble pays high tribute to the motion picture industry.
Motion pictures are our most numerous and effective ambassadors. The artistry and genius that has made celluloid a weapon of war must turn its power to the creation of weapons of peace. This is not a choice for us. This is a stark injunction to follow the only course open to us. We will have one world or we will have no world. This industry, with its drive and courage, must take on the greatest sales job ever conceived. This industry must channel the greatest of all forms of expression to bring to practical realization the great ideals of brotherhood, of tolerance, of freedom, and of democracy.
Goods destined for occupation troops in Japan go up in smoke as fire races through an 8th Army warehouse in Yokohama. Within 10 minutes after the blaze was discovered, the building was a raging inferno and little could be done to salvage any of the stock. Watches, pens, cigarette lighters, athletic equipment, and games were included in the loss. Fortunately, no one was injured, and the men are amply supplied with essentials until new goods can be shipped from the United States. Japanese joined with Americans in battling the blaze that proved so costly to Uncle Sam.
Then Hogan tees off in a desperate effort to pull ahead of Byron Nelson in the $13,000 Los Angeles Open Golf Tournament, attended by a record crowd of 30,000. Dutch Harrison winds up a long one that just misses, coming in 7 strokes behind the winner. Jimmy Demaret tries a 30-footer that is perfect. Lord Byron, after cracking the outgoing 9 in a par 35, can afford to blow 1. His 3-stroke lead is increased to 5 by the time he sinks that winning putt. $2,666 in victory bonds, not to mention the 67 cents are the victor's award. But top prize is for free from this charming golf enthusiast.
Millions of people all over America are thinking about jobs today, post-war jobs, jobs with a future. And thousands of young men are turning to one of the best employment agencies in the world, the regular Army recruiting offices. This fellow looks like a satisfied customer. How about it, Joe? Got yourself a new job?
Me? Yeah, I just re-enlisted. I suppose you could call it a new job at that, because life in the regular Army in peacetime is a lot different from what we just went through.
Good for you, Joe. By the way, are you married?
I sure am. Don't I look it?
What does your wife think about your re-enlisting?
Well, you don't see me all cut and bruised, do you? Anyway, she's right over there. Let's ask her. Well, darling, I'm in. How do you like the idea of being an Army wife?
Oh, I love it, Joe. You know that. Oh, I think it's a perfectly grand idea. And am I glad I listened to reason when Joe first thought about signing up. Believe me, folks, regular Army life in peacetime looks good to us. It's really a slick idea. Good job, good pay when you consider all the extra advantages. Why, we can see this country of ours, travel and learn things. And what's more, Joe can retire with an income that ranges from half pay after 20 years all the way up to 3/4 pay after 30 years in service. And for a first sergeant, that means $155 a month. That's a lot better than we could do in a civilian job. So if your boyfriend or husband is thinking about the regular Army as a lifetime career, tell him to talk it over at the nearest recruiting office. It might prove to be the beginning of real living for you, the way it has for us.